Greetings, Cybertronians. Just a quick reminder that my friend's webcomic crowdfund is still ongoing. I keep spruiking this not for my sake, but because I want my friends to get his webcomic off the ground. If you like science fiction webcomics, please support this. It's an absolutely brilliant world that is crafted here, and it's really close to getting fully funded. Come on, guys, just a little bit further. Sorry to waste your time with that. Enjoy the video.
Read the disclaimer! I'm the other one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Franchises need marketing. It's just a fact of life. If you want people to engage with your product, you need to let them know that your product exists. With the advent of the digital age, that fact has become more important than ever. In fact, it has evolved beyond that. You don't just need to show that your product exists, you need to drum up hype for it. Transformers has a problem with this as of late. Media, whether good or bad, is being woefully undermarketed to the point where even the franchise producer is calling them out. Shows that should be aiming to reach a wider audience given the current lull in popularity are instead being aimed squarely at existing fans. Shows that could reach a wider audience are being regulated to YouTube showings and will likely never get the reach they deserve. But it's not all about media. The toys, the lifeblood of this franchise, are having issues as well. Let's face it, Transformers lives and dies by how well the toys sell. When you go on social media, ironically the media aspect isn't what dominates the conversation. It may be what has the widest reach, but it isn't the primary draw for many fans. So you've got to make sure that people know about the product you're shipping. One small problem though, these toys are being revealed to the public long before any official mention of them. This issue is causing a lot of ruckus within fandom discourse. People are getting furious, yet these videos keep raking in the views, and as a result, the cash. What kind of effect is this having on the marketing? Is it even a problem at all? Or rather, and this is what I think the real question is, what have we been missing this whole time?
You are now entering Diagnosis Insanity.
To understand the breadth of this issue, some explanation as to what is actually going on is required. I'm not primarily referring to TFW 2005 lists that we receive long in advance, or even Amazon listings that have accidentally been put up. Hell, I'm not even referring to leaked images that show up on social media, although they will come up later. But on the whole, I don't believe those are actively doing damage to the perception of the brand. I mean, it's just text boxes and photos. How could that have an effect on how people make their purchases? No, rather, I want to examine a key point and then expand into a wider context. Stolen figure reviews. Now, before we start, I will not be mentioning any specific names. If you've been around the fandom for any time at all, you can probably gather who I'm referring to. But even so, I do not wish to cause unnecessary tension between myself and what are essentially my colleagues. Furthermore, I do not condone going after these individuals. I don't care how much you dislike their actions, online harassment is not okay in any way whatsoever. If you think it's okay, you're a f***wit who really needs to reevaluate their life choices. I mean this with the absolute sincerity. Harassment is not okay under any circumstances. Got it? So essentially we have three primary channels delivering on stolen figure reviews. One of them showed up a while ago, based in Vietnam, where Hasbro's factory was located. Then they were joined by a rival, who often got toys quicker and with higher production value and clearer footage. Given this review is based in the United Kingdom, it's highly possible they are receiving their figures from a different source to the first. That said, a third reviewer, based in the United States, eventually joined the fray, and given evidence, they likely received their stolen figures from the same source as the second. Well, I say evidence, but here's the thing, there's not really much evidence to speak of. The only information we have to go off is he said, she said, they said nonsense being whispered through forums and comments on Facebook and Twitter. For all we know, this could be completely bogus. The way in which everything works could be completely different, so please take all of this with a grain of salt. With that said, allegedly how these reviewers get these figures is through auction. A leaked factory sample would be listed to a small group of individuals, and each will bid on it for the purpose of having a review up before anyone else. Some rumors claim the first reviewer is the auctioneer, and other rumors go even further, saying they have scammed certain other reviewers out of their money. Once again, for the sake of avoiding harassment, I'm not going to mention who specifically. Again, I'm hesitant to take stock in these. Not because I'm trying to defend them, but because we don't know enough about this situation. Whispers through the pipeline are not significant evidence. The only reason I'm covering them here is to paint a picture of the current state of the fandom. The point is, usually these three reviewers get one of two reactions: apathetic or extremely negative, especially towards towards the first reviewer, given they started this trend, a large portion of people is furious towards the situation. It's difficult to definitively pinpoint what is actually going on, and what's merely baseless accusation for the purpose of discrediting a content creator people despise. This is by no means a defense of any of these YouTubers. They could very well be guilty of truly heinous acts beyond what people have even thought about. This is merely me being hesitant to put information out there that may muddy the narrative further than it already has been. But what can be confirmed, or at least close to it? Well, for one, these are stolen factory samples. People often call them leaked samples or factory rejects, but whatever the case, the only way in which these figures make their way into the hands of these reviewers is a factory worker deliberately taking stock that is meant to be packed with the rest and sending it off to someone early. I've seen theories that Hasbro is secretly endorsing such behavior, but considering the first reviewer had their channel DMCA'd by Hasbro on 2 separate occasions in an effort to quell these early reviews, this basically deconfirms it. Besides, this isn't even a theory. Theories, by definition, require evidence to back them up. This right here is a hypothesis, and a bad one at that. Through a process of elimination, however, the only way these figures are getting out of the factory is through theft. Now, it is unlikely that the first reviewer is actually an employee of the Hasbro factory. Given they have shifted to using their voice in recent videos, they definitely would have been caught by now. And looking at other industries, stolen factory samples often go through 7 go-betweens to cover the perpetrator's tracks. It's entirely possible that stolen factory samples are quite common in Vietnam, sold through bootleg markets. Such has been the case for quite some time. I paid $10 for my copy of Takara Legends Black Arachnia from China, because at the time the eyes had been fully painted over. Easy fix, but my point is there's been a precedent set for quite some time now. This is entirely possible. Or the first reviewer could be coordinating an entire black market on stolen figures. That's possible too. I have to ask though, regardless of what the case is, what is the effects this is having on the fandom? Let's remove ourselves from the Hasbro has the right to reveal figures first argument, because that seems a little reductive. Instead, let's take it back to the opening argument. Hype is required for franchise growth. Yes, too much of it can lead to expectations beyond what the original project is capable of, but no hype at all leads to a project gaining a lukewarm reception. If people aren't getting excited for a company's product, announcements won't engage in social media algorithms. Small amounts of word of mouth only go so far. In the digital age, you need a large amount to create almost a snowball effect. I realize such a phrase often carries a negative context, but in most cases, it's basically a necessity for franchises to do well. In this light, yes, these reviews are doing damage. Hasbro often holds FanFest Fridays, and these are a good way to drum up discussion for several figures. The most successful of these showed the world brand new glimpses of Kingdom Waves 1 and 3. These weren't leaked as easily as the majority of the Earthrise line, and as such they dominated social media conversation. When people already know what a presentation is going to announce, what's the point of tuning in? What's the point if you can just scroll past social media the next day for slightly more professional photography? I'm not suggesting companies should have full control over how people use their content. I don't want Hasbro becoming Nintendo or Games Workshop, but some control over what people are talking about is necessary from a marketing perspective. So yes, these reviews are doing damage. That's not to say these reviews aren't good in some ways for the consumer. Occasionally, these videos will highlight some of the shortcomings, allowing consumers to make educated guesses on figures. I still haven't bought any version of Earthrise RC. If it weren't for any of those early reviews, I might have given her a chance. But even so, these videos are causing problems. But are they the actual source of this conundrum? Ultimately, even through all the rumors and accusations, I can't take issue with the videos themselves too much. They are causing damage, but the creators themselves aren't intentionally trying to do so. If offered an early review sample, hell, I'd probably take that chance. Sure, I might be more open about where I received that sample from, but the YouTube hustle is the YouTube hustle. Early samples drive up view counts. The sooner you can get a video out, the better it will do. This is merely the logical conclusion to the argument, just with a few extra steps of controversy in between. So, if these three aren't the source of the problem, what exactly is going on here? It's simple. They're not the cause, they're the symptom. Let's face it, these reviews are going to happen one way or another. Regardless of whether Transformers are being manufactured in China or Vietnam or even Gobatron, these videos are going to happen. Some of the most respected content creators on the platform have engaged in this behavior before, and nobody has criticized them for such. The difference is the scale of what's happening here. So, what has changed between this and this? The way I see it, it's the internet. The speed of information grows rapidly each year, and that has shined a light on one thing. Hasbro isn't keeping up. Let's examine a few recent releases. Studio Series Grindor, for instance. Grindor was officially revealed by Hasbro on July 18th, 2021. Ignoring Jolt, who already had leaked factory samples out in the wild prior to his stolen figure review, and even ignoring Thrust, who had been out in the Philippines since 20 days prior, I had already received Grindor. Yep, not out of Asia, but ordered right here in Australia. I checked the date. I even got a second copy shortly after the reveal because my first copy had bugged QC. See something wrong here? Maybe let's take a look at something more recent instead, Kingdom Red Alert. So far, even at the time of writing this video, Hasbro hasn't officially announced him, and yet is not just available in Canada for people to grab off the shelves. I was able to import him from Singapore via not just a goddamn freight forwarder, but also waiting several days to go cycling with a friend who operates said freight forwarder. Weeks waiting for him to drop, and Hasbro still hasn't officially announced him. See something wrong here? Hell, this isn't even the first time the Siege Sideswipe mold has had this happen. Remember Deep Cover? The original Deep Cover? It was dropped on certain store shelves, arrived in people's houses a week later, and then only 2 weeks after that, did Hasbro put it up for pre-order on Pulse. This isn't even a new thing either. Remember how years ago I was invited to a Hasbro event? They physically had Power of the Prime's Battle Trap in the building, and Hasbro US called the office up and told them to remove them. Literally 2 days later, they were on store shelves in Singapore. They are continuing to make conscious decisions to hold off on announcements until it's practically too late, and to me, this seems ridiculous. I'm not suggesting that Hasbro announce things a whole year in advance. Obviously, a balance is needed, but at present, they are waiting far too long to announce things. These early reviews aren't the problem here. They will happen regardless of what's coming out. Hasbro just doesn't have the resources to put extreme levels of factory security in place. The only reason they're doing as much damage as they are is because there's no announcement prior to such. Without a concrete announcement for many of these figures, the event Hasbro pulls are falling on deaf ears. People already know, so what's the point of tuning in? And it's such a simple thing to rectify. Grindor and the rest of his wave were packed in alongside Studio Series 86 figures revealed months prior. They were in the same case assortment, but for some reason they delayed the announcement until far later. This, to me, seems like gross incompetence. I'm not so entitled that I need to know every single release for the next 5 years right off the bat, but I just can't look at these social media tactics without seeing this as Hasbro shooting themselves in the foot. Feasibly, there's no way to stop these videos from coming out, but it is possible to lessen their impact by upping the ante on Hasbro's social media presence. And you can't turn around and say,
Well, we should be happy that Hasbro is holding these events at all.
all you need to do is take a look at their most recent live stream, and you can clearly see they have no idea what they're doing. Friday the 13th of August 2021 opens up with a brilliant step in the right direction. CGI renders of toys not due out until April and resin prototypes shown off on screen. Yes, thank you. More of this, please. But then the remaining 35 minutes consists of fluff nobody gives a shit about. Chessboards that are way outside the price range of the majority of the audience watching? Sure, it's great, but is this really what people tuned into? Comic covers, which, as awesome as they are, could have just been announced in an article? Recaps of figures already announced? 5 minutes wasted on a CGI trailer for a mobile game that will likely contain the same predatory microtransaction policies that are causing the video game industry to implode? And you know what they didn't announce? Kingdom Wave 4. Every single figure from this wave has been leaked with the exception of Slammer. These are on the production line right now as I write this video. Within a month, these will likely be on store shelves. Yet they're still holding out on these announcements. Yes, the pandemic is a thing, but that's still no excuse to waste your viewers' time with pointless rambling that nobody cares about. And don't say that we should be thankful for it. If Transformers started advertising slot machines, people wouldn't be thankful. This is essentially the same thing, just with flashier graphics and no payouts. Sorry that got off topic for a bit, but the point still stands. Fan First Fridays need to happen earlier and be far more extensive. Now, some people might argue that the way to fix this is not through these methods, but instead to place greater control on how Transformers' intellectual property is handled. And this is a bad idea. If Hasbro wants to start taking these videos down, in the eyes of the law, they'd have to start taking everything down, lest their arguments be seen as null and void. You want to take these down? Well, then there's real potential that these have to be taken down as well. These too. Oh, yeah, and third party can go bye-bye as well. I realize a lot of people arguing against these Solon review samples might be on this boat, since third party and Chug fans don't often overlap. But what happens when that starts going into fan creation territory? I brought up Games Workshop and Nintendo earlier, because I genuinely believe that companies having complete control over their social media presence is a terrifying thing. Sure, they do need some control, but they don't need complete control. The way I see it, if Hasbro starts going after these, they have to start going after everything else. So instead, I suggest announcing things slightly earlier. Not to a ridiculous degree. I don't want hype fizzling out long before these figures release, but definitely a month or two earlier than what's currently happening. This was already how things were done back in the Prime Wars trilogy, with renders being shown before the figures were fully in production. Hell, the recent Fan First Friday has shown they can still do that, and it was great. The one thing people took away from that livestream was Perceptor. Everyone's loving him. What they need to do is do that, but on a wider scale. Yes, people often prefer real photos to rendered ones, and the way in which they they reveal figures now does look stunning, but at the cost of all the damage being done, I don't know if it's worth it. In conversations with friends, they've brought up the fact that revealing things earlier causes retail stores to cut sales for earlier products and wait for the later ones, but honestly, I can't agree with that statement. I seriously doubt Big W is stalking Transformers forums for news on their latest products. They don't even know what they're selling half the time. No, these live streams are primarily for existing fans and who the toys are marketed at in this current climate. And as such, I think it's important to get it right. Hell, aside from the recent resin prototypes, they've already done this with Black Zarak. Yeah, just do that again. The answer is right there. They just have to implement it on a wider scale. Hasbro gets control of their marketing back, early reviewers still get to make their videos, everybody wins. So ultimately, I don't think people are looking at this the right way. It's incredibly easy to take a stab at an individual and claim that them changing their ways will solve everything, whereas I think it's far more difficult to get the attention of a large corporation and to get them to alter their current trajectory. I don't think this issue is the worst thing to ever plague the company, but I do think we're going about this all wrong. As a fandom, we need to recognize the actual source of the problem and inspire the creators of what we collect to do better. The solution may be simple and the problem may be minuscule on the grand scheme of things, but it is something we can pester them to improve upon. Transformers is the lifeblood of this channel. Sure, I like to tackle other projects from time to time, but it's not what people come here for. I love this franchise, especially the collecting aspects, and I want it to succeed to its fullest potential. In order to do that, I don't think we need to stop a few YouTubers from engaging in a secret club and asserting dominance on the algorithm. I think it's a better idea to take a step back, examine things in the greater context, for only then will the problem make itself known to you.